Today I want to share with you what I think is an exciting AI experiment. Last year I published LLMapper, a tool that uses LLMs to draw concept maps from Wikipedia pages. A concept map is a diagram that shows relationships between concepts. It consists of nodes that represent ideas and arrows that are labeled that represent relationships between them. And looking at a set of ideas related like this helps visual thinkers understand complex subjects more easily. Back in 2024, AIs really struggled with drawing concept maps. You could ask them to do it, but they produce basically garbage. And at that point, I'd been teaching human students how to do this for several years. And I thought it'd be neat to try to get LLMs to actually do this. So I wrote a shell script that leverages Simon Willison's LLM command line tool plus GraphViz and a few other command line tools. And I developed that, both the script and the prompts, to the point where it got good enough, and then I stopped. But I've revisited it recently because in October of 2025, Anthropic released a new functionality for Claude called Agent Skills that basically gives Claude new abilities. And I thought it'd be really neat to try to create a skill based on LLMapper to get Claude to draw concept maps like these. So I fired up Claude Code and I used it to convert the LLMapper shell script to a new skill that allows you to draw concept maps of this kind using Claude, either Claude for the web or the desktop version of Claude or Claude Code. So I'm going to demonstrate how it works. But first, let's look at how to install it. Before we go any further, know that there are some minimum requirements. As of November 2025, you can only use skills if you have a Claude Pro, Max, Team, or Enterprise account, or if you're using Claude Code on the command line. So let's assume all of those are true. I'm going to walk you through the installation on Claude Pro for the web, which is what I'm using. The first thing you need to do is you need to download the skills zip file from the GitHub page. And I've linked the GitHub page in the description below. The zip file is the one called LLMapper-skill.zip. And in my case, I've already downloaded this. It is in my downloads folder. So you can see that here in my doc. And what you want to do with that zip file is you want to go to Claude and go to your settings menu. And under settings, there's a section called capabilities. So you want to click on that, scroll through to the section that says skills, and you're going to click on the upload skill button, and you're going to drag the zip file into the dialog box. When you do, you're going to notice that it is now enabled. So LLMapper is now installed, and Claude has the ability to draw concept maps. So now I'm going to show you how that actually works. Now that it's installed and enabled, you can start a new chat. And this is the same old Claude user interface. And you can say, draw a concept map. And you can do something like paste a Wikipedia URL. In this case, the Wikipedia URL for the Panama Canal. So draw a concept map of blah, 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 blah. You can also use the /LLMmapper command and either upload a PDF or paste the text that you wanted to draw the map from. But in this case, I'm just going to ask it to look at this URL. And it's going to start working. Pondering, it says. Okay, so it is now, you see that it says it's reading the LLMapper skill to understand how to create concept maps. So this is how you know that it is leveraging the skill that we just uploaded. It is now fetching the content of that article. And here comes the first important bit. So when I teach students to draw concept maps, I always say that a concept map should be built around a focusing question. And a focusing question is the question that you're looking to explore with the map. If you don't do this, the concept maps tend to be trees. They just tend to be hierarchical. We want something a little bit richer than that, right? So in this skill, I've prompted Claude to think about 3 possible focusing questions. So let's see what it's come up with. How did the Panama Canal transform global trade patterns and reshape economic relationships between nations and continents? That's interesting. What does the century-long struggle to build and control the Panama Canal reveal about imperialism, sovereignty, and international power dynamics? That's topical. How does the Panama Canal exemplify humanity's capacity to overcome extreme engineering challenges while also exposing the environmental and social costs of such massive interventions? So all 3 of these, I think, are interesting questions about this article. And these are what are usually called dynamic questions. So you can imagine that a diagram drawn around any of these is going to be, it's about transformation, right? Like what effect does this thing have, as opposed to a static question, which is more about like, what is this, right? So we're not asking it, what is the Panama Canal? We're asking it to think about what kind of change the Panama Canal is affecting in the world. I'm going to pick question 1, and all you do is you say 1. So now Claude is going to use that focusing question as the starting point to create the concept map. And there is an intermediary step. Before drawing the map itself, I'm having it create a knowledge graph behind the scenes. So it determines what the most important concepts are, how they relate to each other. And then it makes an RDF knowledge graph behind the scenes. So the diagram itself is actually a visual representation of a miniature knowledge graph that Claude is creating. So this is the map. It is rendered in mermaid format. There are a couple of other formats that are programmed into it, but let's actually examine this map and see what it came up with. Zoom in here a little bit. All right, so the Panama Canal connects Atlantic Ocean, connects Pacific Ocean. Well, this is a limitation of mermaid right here. So the original version of LLMapper used GraphViz because GraphViz produces very elegant diagrams. Mermaid, which is what Claude uses by default to render diagrams, is nowhere near as powerful and elegant as GraphViz. So we have to live with some artifacts like these. But you'll notice here that it is rendering some pretty complex relationships between concepts. So the Panama Canal enables economic growth. Panama Canal transforms global trade, and global trade drives economic growth. Global trade depends on maritime routes. Maritime routes serve United States. United States uses Panama Canal. Maritime routes serve China. China uses Panama Canal, right? So it's starting to pick up on these important concepts that hopefully help answer the question. So far, what I'm demonstrating here is part of the feature set that was available in the original version of LLMapper. So this is the kind of diagram that the original version would spit out. Now, the original version was not interactive. Well, it was partly interactive in that you could give it a URL and it would go off and read that article and make the map. But it wouldn't ask you the questions. And once it drew the map, that's it. The process had ended. But because we are now in Claude, we can actually continue this conversation and make changes. So for example, we could, let's see, what else, what can we dive into here? So there's something here about container ships are limited. So the Panama Canal Authority collects tolls. Tolls are based on container ships. Container ships are limited by canal expansion. I'm not entirely clear here on how tolls are based on container ships. So I think it would be really interesting for Claude to help flesh this out. So I can ask it, please clarify how container ships alter or influence tolls. So I'm doing this live, by the way, so I don't know what it's going to come up with, but this is obviously very different from the initial version of LLM Mapper because now I'm asking Claude to think about how this might be expanded, right? So it is going to go back and hopefully make relevant changes to this diagram. So it says that the diagram is now updated. Yep, there it goes. It refreshed. Let's zoom in here and see. Yep. So container ships are measured by TEU capacity, and TEU capacity determines tolls. Tolls are calculated from TEU capacity. So I would have to have someone who actually knows about this to determine whether it is accurate. It is clarifying here in the chat that that TU capacity means 20-foot equivalent units, which I'm assuming is the relevant measure here. I noticed that in the subsequent request here, Claude didn't go off and do any web search, right? So I could tell it explicitly to go off and search the web, or I could pass it another Wikipedia article or another article in general and say, use this to expand the diagram. So let's try something else. I'm thinking that this relationship, TU capacity determines tolls and tolls are calculated from TU capacity, is redundant. So I'm going to ask Claude to clean this up a little bit. So the fact that TEU capacity determines tolls and that tolls are calculated from TEU capacity seems redundant. Please clean this up. Let's see what it does. Yeah, it's kind of psychopathic, right? Like, you're absolutely right. All right, so it has redrawn the diagram. Let's look for the relevant section here. Okay, so yeah, there you go. So tolls are calculated from TU capacity. Container ships are measured by TU capacity. So I think that this is a little bit better. And you could imagine that doing this kind of thing, you could keep going until the point where you get a diagram that hopefully is helping you explore a complex subject. So there you have it. With the LLM Mapper skill, Claude now has the ability to draw and manipulate concept maps. I hope you find this tool fun and useful. And if you make anything neat with it, I'd love to hear about it. Please leave feedback in the comments below.